Hello, I am Shyboy616 and welcome to part 3. With me again is my trusty co-host Meg-A-Shark the Land Shark. In this video, I'm going to do a little different from the last two. So as you can see, I am going to be covering 4 movies in this video alone, and that is because they're all on the same disc and they're all a series. So the second half of the Meg-A-Shark Collection is actually just an entire series of movies known as Shark Attack. I had thought it was just a trilogy with another movie because the 4th movie on here isn't called Shark Attack. I didn't see that till I went to IMDb and it said that Shark Zone, the last movie on here, is actually technically a part of the series. And was also known as Shark Attack 4. So the way I'm going to be doing this one different is I'm still going to read them off before I talk about each one. This is actually my second attempt recording this. The last one, something was wrong with the audio. As you might have seen in the last video, the audio might have been a little funky on the shots that were in here. Here being my wife's setup. I think I can do some pretty decent lightning rounds to get through each movie, because honestly, I'm going to tell you why. There was no reason for there to be 4 of these. Hold my face, there we go. Alright, so Shark Attack. Marine biologist Stephen McCrae, Casper Van Dien, uncovers a plot by a scientist who is experimenting on sharks to find a cure for cancer, resulting in super aggressive killer sharks. Now this first movie was actually kind of promising. The plot was interesting, even though it was a rip of another shark movie. There was not a whole lot of nothing dialogue, and it technically all flowed into each other. It was just a little boring because this definitely felt like it should have been more of an action movie. And again, this entire disc actually is from New Image. So the end part of this does become an action movie. But first, it starts off as a pretty decent shark movie. We open with a scuba diver breaking into a facility, getting some files off a computer, sending them off to somebody else. In his escape, he gets stopped by local police in a patrol boat. They attack him and leave him to be eaten by a shark in the water. We are then introduced to our main character, who's the person that was receiving the message from the now dead guy. He's reading about these shark attacks in South Africa, and that's what leads him to go to where his friend was. Here we are also introduced to a scientist, another associate of theirs, that is currently studying sharks in South Africa. We get a pretty convincing autopsy scene, which is pretty nasty looking. The shark he's conducting the autopsy on happens to be the one that ate our guy in the beginning. This is how our main guy learns that his friend is dead. It seems like he was uncovering something that wasn't supposed to get out. Amongst our cast we're being introduced to is going to be our main boatman, which he's probably my favorite character in this movie. And then the sister of the friend, who's upset that because these two guys did this whole thing for a living, she feels like it's our main guy's fault because he wouldn't have been doing all these dangerous things if it wasn't for what they had been doing together. So what's going on around here is that business is going down. Everyone's afraid to get in the water. This becomes a concern with, I'm pretty sure this guy's the mayor, and he's also the only other familiar face in this movie. And so he's overseeing everything going on, and he's wanting to be sure everything can get solved. As our hero takes on the task of looking for the shark, they find something they call thumpers in the water. This is something that creates some kind of sound that lures in the sharks, and that's why so many are being brought into the city. Someone has been putting them there to get sharks. They have a run-in with locals who don't want them around there because they don't want anyone messing with the sharks or anything in their territory. But as it turns out, our scientist friend has a deal with them. The deal is he'll buy the sharks for a good price, and then they'll leave him alone, letting him conduct his research. It is revealed that his research is an attempt to cure cancer, and he already has an actual test subject, not just sharks. It's a kid in a hospital, and it seems like the drug that he made is working. To our lead's dismay, he's not happy about him going on testing when it hasn't been approved in any other way. Things get a little more interesting. We then find out that because of all the properties closing down, this is actually something that the mayor would be very interested in. Turns out he's actually been hoping for everything to close down, so eventually he could buy up everything, own the whole city, and get rid of the shark problem. He's the one that took the thumpers and has been bringing in all the extra sharks, causing all the attacks. But because of the drugs being put into the sharks, they are super aggressive. And as for people, it seems the drug worked until it didn't. This leads to a whole conflict, and you'd think the scientist was in on this, but he had no idea. He was getting just as screwed over, even though he was doing something he probably shouldn't have been. And one last ditch effort to resolve the problem, not just with the sharks. All the fishermen are rounded up by our main boatman, and they go and save our lead. It's a pretty decent fight, pretty on par for New Image and other direct-to-video action movies. It's just pretty cool still seeing blanks and squibs. Our scientist friend does risk his own life, sacrificing himself so the lead can escape after the big bad guy was about to kill him. Another chase happens, and then we end up in a helicopter, and so our main dude, he's trying to throw the guy out of the helicopter, and there's no way he wasn't trying to kill him, because then they both end up in the water, the helicopter crashes, and then he's trying to save him from being eaten by the shark. It's like, were you not just trying to kill him literally like 1 minute ago, not even? So of course he gets eaten, and all is good. all of the bad people are dead, and the sharks are gonna go back to normal because there's nothing drawing them there anymore. This one I think had the strongest story out of all of them. It probably looked the best, but it was still kind of boring. I gave it a 3 out of 10. Not enough shark action, even though there was some legit shark footage and animatronic usage. Now on to Shark Attack 2. A great white shark captured for the new tourist attraction Waterworld turns out to be one of the genetically mutated sharks that had escaped from captivity, and it is not alone. This movie opens up with yet another scuba diver. This time a pair of women and one of them gets eaten. We move on to the whole Waterworld thing, and they have a shark expert there to be sure that the place is going to be ready to open and to go get them their shark. The shark is brought into captivity, but it turns out that it's actually the same shark that ate the person at the beginning, and the diver that survived, she is not happy with it. She's trying to say they need to kill it, but the guy's saying it's like, it's still just a shark. It's not like this is what they do all the time. Which, I mean, fair. Predator's gonna predator. They open up Waterworld and a huge crowd is there to check out the new shark. Among the audience is mostly children, and they're looking into the aquarium right as someone happens to fall in and get eaten by the shark. And on top of that, the shark escapes. It's horrible publicity, and now our shark expert has to go get the thing back. Luckily they have a tracker on it so they can try to find it. The owner of the joint didn't have total faith in their first guy, so he called on a film crew. He's pretty much a fake Steve Irwin. It's the guy with a nature show where what he mostly does is hunt sharks. There's a little standoff between the two guys, like who's the tougher, but it's mostly on the TV guy's side. They go out, have some boat problems trying to get their shark, but they get saved by the TV crew, and they make it back to shore. The TV crew is actually able to get the shark, but the way they got it was the shark ended up in the boat's rudder. So when they're showing it off the next day, the shark's face is all ripped up, and they're trying to figure out if this is in fact the shark they were looking for. An autopsy later, they find out this is not the same shark, but it is very similar to the one that they lost. As it turns out, just like in the plot description said, you wouldn't realize it's supposed to be connected to the first movie. The reason that these sharks are so unique is they have something strange going on with their cells. They had noted earlier, something I failed to mention, was that the shark was much bigger for how old it was. They're rapidly aging and they seem to have better healing properties. And also, they're killers. The sharks in this one are supposed to be like the offspring or the leftovers of the ones from the last movie. So the shark hunt continues and they have to devise a plan to get it because they find out there's more of them out there, not just the one they've been looking for or the one that they killed. The guys at the beach, we actually have pretty much a complete ripoff of Jaws happen, and I mean, all the movies I think actually do this. This entire Shark Attack series does it. I just didn't want to say it every time, but it's a whole thing of like, get everyone out of the water off the beach. But this one even includes the Jaws shot, the dolly zoom, so I mean, they did that and that was kind of cool. And the other great thing about the sequence is that there's actually several sharks attacking, so you get a lot more action than normal. Our main guy ends up losing his whole crew, and then after this, it kind of felt that heartfelt moment being like, hey, I'm sorry about the way I was acting, you know, I'm just doing my thing. Let's go do this together. And he shows off this cool underwater handgun he's got. A little disappointing, we don't get to see the gun used as much as I hoped, but it is gonna get used. We go on our last dive. They have a submarine rigged with explosives ready to go. The goal is to lure it into one spot and blow them all up in one go. They run into some problems, but TV man comes to the rescue. He's gonna make the sacrifice and lead the sub where it needs to go so he can set it off and be sure all the sharks get blown up. This last sequence is actually kind of cool. So our main guy was actually the one that got to go away with the gun. We see it used to kill a shark. I guess it was kind of cool. But the whole sub thing ends up working out and we're pretty much just left with the lead and the girl. But wait, turns out our guy made it. TV man made it, he survived. I'm actually really glad to see he made it. He was probably the most interesting character out of everybody. The leads in the Shark Attack movies, kind of all of them, but I feel like the last disc had better leads. The main guys in each of these movies are pretty boring. So I did end up liking this one more. Maybe part of why I liked it more was it was also directed by the guy that did Kickboxer, one of my favorite Van Damme movies. So that was kind of cool. He directed the next one as well, but I have words for that movie. Before getting to that, I give Shark Attack 2 a 4, but critically I'd probably still give it a 3 because it is pretty much on par with the last movie, but I did enjoy this one a little more. I was actually kind of into it. And now on to Shark Attack 3, Megalodon. The only thing in the Meg-A-Shark Collection to have a Megalodon. Two researchers find a gargantuan shark's tooth off of the Mexican coast. Soon they realize that it's not from an ancient fossil, but from a living prehistoric terror. So already, this one has absolutely nothing to do with the last two movies. It's not even in South Africa. It's not the genetically mutated sharks. Nothing in common with the previous entries. So this movie starts off again with the guy scuba diving, but this guy isn't just exploring or anything. He's repairing a cable under the water, and the guys back at the station are communicating with him, only for things to get cut off by an attack. They don't expect a killer shark. This is what kicks off everything for the whole movie, and I think it's kind of funny that this is the plot, because I remember a few years back, there was actually a story online about how sharks were essentially attacking the internet and trying to eat the cables down there. So this is actually a thing that goes on. So we get introduced to our main guy. He's out on a boat and he's going fishing somewhere he's not really supposed to be. He goes in the water, he finds what I assume is the same cable somewhere else and finds a shark tooth inside, and he takes that with him. And when he gets back out, he's told, it's like, hey, you're not supposed to be here, but he's got the tooth. He wants to find out what went wrong. He goes on this website, I guess it's just about sharks, and he's looking at shark teeth trying to figure out which one matches the one he's got. Then he does this special like high-tech thing. He's got just a regular camera, and it magically takes a photo of the tooth and then just gets rid of the background around it and uploads just the tooth, types it up as a mystery, hoping someone will be able to identify it. Very quickly someone sees it at this museum somewhere else. Now this one is more R-rated than the other ones. There's not really more gore or anything, but there's also some nudity. It's got all the B's in it. Booty, boobs, and blood. And we could do with a lot more blood. We see this couple going skinny dipping, and it seems they're about to be attacked by a shark. As we see the shark coming up, an even bigger shark comes and eats it. The couple managed to get away because they were not the target at this time. So our guy and his crew are called down to check out the shark, and it's actually a pretty little one. It's even got tiny teeth. I mean, still it'll freak you out, but it is not the one that really scared him out. Our expert that is able to identify the tooth approaches our guy and says, hey, let's meet up. I want to see the tooth. Tell me what's going on. So I'm going to be kind of skipping around this one a little more because this movie sucks. So this lady, she brought a crew with her, and they actually succeed in finding the shark. It even attacks the boat, biting it and leaving another tooth that matches the one they've got. We're told later that it's a Megalodon, and it appears that this one is a baby. So they go back out to try to catch it because the sharks start attacking the beach and they need to get rid of this thing. It's not good for business. So in this attempt, they lose some people, the boat gets attacked, and there's a pretty decent shot with a shotgun blasting the shark's brains out. So they think everything is fine until it's not. So I haven't really brought up this guy, but there's been this other dude that has a submarine that just kind of goes out and does it, that's friends with the main guy. So he gets pretty excited when he's called and he gets to spring into action with his buddy. So the thrilling conclusion of this movie is the whole reason this movie is even worth watching. I don't know if any of y'all remember this. There were some old meme clips of a shark eating people, but the shark was made to look huge. This is the Megalodon. And I guess they can get away with it because essentially great whites are descendants or whatever of the Megalodon, so it kind of works out, just upsizing a great white shark. So in the last boat attack, I didn't bring it up because I wanted to make a compilation of all of it. We see it eat a rescue boat, and then it eats part of the film crew, and I'm pretty sure they used the same shot for both times. And that's not all they're gonna do. We're gonna get a few more of those at this yacht party. So they thought everything was fine, but it turned out that there was an even bigger shark, but the guy wanted to act like nothing was going wrong, so he continues on with this party anyways. But they did have a bit of insurance policy, which was just a bag full of grenades. When everything starts going wrong, he goes out with an associate of his and they start throwing grenades in the water, but this is ruining the plans with the submarine down below. They had planted their explosives, but the blasts start messing with the sub. But the shots underwater with the submarine and the shark actually look kind of good. I like it. But that is nothing compared to what we're about to see. As the yacht is being attacked, we get several more of those funny shark attack bits. There's another one of a guy trying to get off the boat, and he just dives straight to the shark's mouth. One with a lifeboat full of people gets eaten, the entire boat. And then the best one, probably the one that most people will recognize. There's a guy trying to get away on a jet ski, only to go straight into the shark's mouth. And the shot of him on the jet ski reminds me of those old movies where they had the projector screen behind. That's what it looks like. But luckily, down below the surface, our guy is actually able to get things working even after things had gone wrong. The older guy had gone out and made sure everything was rigged, ready to go, and they're able to get the explosives to the shark and they blow it up. So everything works out. And this movie sucks. Like, it was really boring, and even though it was directed by the same guy as the previous movie, it was nowhere near as fun. The bits with the shark are not as good either. Like, I don't know what they did so different, because they had some real footage. I don't know if they just didn't have an animatronic anymore. And then the whole thing of trying to make a huge shark, I think it was a little ambitious because it didn't come off very good, and they didn't really do much with it. Because having the baby Megalodon, it was like you were just treating it like a great white in the other movies. And then when you got to the point of the huge one, then it's like, well, if you didn't have the means to make it any other way, it's like, why did they decide to make the movie like this? It was a little too goofy. And if the whole movie was like that, maybe it would have been fun, but it just wasn't. And that's why I give it a 2, with that extra star being for all those shots of the shark looking huge. And that brings us to our last movie, Shark Zone. The only survivor of a shark attack, Jimmy Wagner, must face the same great white sharks 10 years later as they return for a second round to terrorize a beach resort. Now this one, I'm gonna give you the beginning, kind of the middle, and the end. And you're about to find out what I mean by that. So at the very beginning of this movie, we get a bit of a little backstory. This also has to do with treasure, a little bit like Shark in Venice, and that's not the only thing that's gonna be like that. So the setup is that we see this old time boat, it had a bunch of treasure, and it went down in a storm. We're about to see some people on a dive just for the sake of fun. They're gonna do some exploring underwater. Some guys are being jackasses, some people aren't, some people just want to be down in the water. But the guy in charge is actually the dad of our main dude. But if you remember what the plot description was, everyone's going to die. So that means dad's gone. Some years later, our protagonist and his kid, the kid's afraid of water, something like that. I'm gonna skip through this middle hard, and this is why. So much of this movie is just recycled content from the last 3 shark attacks. Even the boat the guy uses was from the second movie, the Down Under. All the shark footage is reused, like that bit with the shotgun in the boat, that's reused. All the underwater bits. There's not much original content in this. I don't even think they had an animatronic like they did in those first 2 movies. But it's just reusing a lot of footage of sharks swimming around and stuff. There's not even that many fun bits in here to even point out. What the story boils down to is that this guy, he gets called on by the Russian mob to go look for the treasure underwater. But they're sharks. At the end, they finally convince him to do it on his own after he lost his crew and stuff throughout the movie because they kidnap his son. So he goes in, saves his son, and the son says, "Grandpa will be proud of you," and all that. So they're over everything. The kid's not afraid of water anymore. And the end sequence is kind of funny. The ending is kind of funny because they're on a cruise, you know, everything's fine now. Their kid's not scared of water anymore, so it's actually swimming around. So dad's watching and he sees a shark in the water, but it was just all in his head. And that is the end of Shark Zone, and this gets the honor or dishonor of being one of the few movies just ever that I'm giving a 1 out of 10. This movie is truly awful. There's no redeeming qualities. The original content wasn't good enough. It just piggybacks off the last 3 movies, and number 3 was not really worth piggybacking on. It just reuses too much content. There's not enough original stuff, and the stuff they reuse, it's just what's the point? And it's with that we get to say goodbye to the Meg-A-Shark Collection. It's quite the collection, but it's nothing great. I will say though, for $1.25 or $5 at Walmart, I feel like it could have been a lot worse. A few of the movies were fun. I would say 4 of the movies were kind of fun to watch, with only 2 of them I'd really recommend. Those 2 being Toxic Shark and Sharkman. Toxic Shark was pretty fun. I know I gave it a bad critical rating, but it was a fun watch, some interesting ideas. Sharks in Venice was boring, except that last bit I actually did kind of like the action sequences, and those 2 shots of the shark were kind of funny. The Malibu shark attack, that was just, I don't know how it was so boring. Sharkman was kind of fun as an action movie, not enough Sharkman. And then the shark attacks, they all kind of feel the same. The first 2 though, I think are the ones that would be worth watching if you're into that sort of thing. 3, maybe just to laugh at it. 4, skip entirely. I cannot recommend 4 for any reason. There's nothing about it that's any good. And tomorrow I'll have another video going up with 3 more shark movies, so be sure to come back for that. And this is just a reminder, this was only part 3. There's another video going up tomorrow and then the day after that. So if you enjoyed what you saw, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and share the video. I'm Shyboy 616. This is my trusty co-host, Like a Shark the Land Shark. See you next time.